can and should increase their businesses and commercial relationship to strengthen the bond. In this interconnected world we all live in, we value international relationships based on respect and mutual benefits. From the Suriname perspective, we would welcome expertise from India in the area of food security. One of the main global challenges of our future, Suriname can and must play its part. We had a tradition of a great rice industry. Some of the famous rice varieties were exported to the Punjab in India through the one-time internationally acclaimed Rice Research Center at Wageningen, Nikeri. We can reclaim that tradition with the use of new high-tech approaches. Our diaspora students and researchers should be able to tap into the vastly available expertise India has. The already successful Know India program should be emphasized and broadened. In the area of IT consultancy and development, Suriname's young populations can be a great resource. During my 2017 visit, I already proposed to establish a special Indian Diaspora Committee to study these issues and to come up with a report and proposals to identify opportunities and practical proposals that will benefit both India and Suriname. To facilitate all these efforts, I wish to propose India and Suriname should introduce the free movement of people between our countries without requiring visas. Suriname is prepared to take a first step in doing so by ending visa permits for visitors from India to Suriname. I believe it would benefit tourism between our countries and would give an important impulse to business opportunities between our countries. Ladies and gentlemen, may I conclude by saying that the importance of the Indian diaspora can and must be one of mutual benefits. If we approach the opportunities in this way, we can achieve great things for our countries. It is written in the Bhagavad Gita beautifully that the strength of us as human beings is to connect people. Sarva bhuta hite rata, what literally means to be busy constantly with the well-being of all. In this regard, it is also our duty to connect the Indian diaspora community with Bharat Mata and thus to connect my beautiful country Suriname with our cultural heritage in India. Ladies and gentlemen, our Suriname diaspora is part of India's soft power. From my perspective, I wish to say that consequently, India is also part of Suriname's soft power. We have a historical bond with each other, and that bond will be our strength to move ahead, hand in hand for the benefit of both our countries and the international Indian diaspora community. Bhai aur bahino, duniya ko shrestha banao. Let us jointly make this a noble world. May I once again thank your Prime Minister Modi for the invitation to address this distinguished audience. And ladies and gentlemen, may I thank you for your kind attention. Namaste, and may God bless the peoples of our countries, India and Suriname. Once again, I thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain connected to us.
संख्या बता कि जड़ से, लेकिन नहीं उतना ही बढ़ रहा। इस बीच के 15 विजय आज मैं सभी विजय शुभकामनाएं और साथ साथ इस क्विज कंपटीशन में हिस्सा लेने वाले हैं सब, और मेरा इस क्विज में हिस्सा लेने वाले सबसे आग्रह है पढ़कर के अपने देशों में जाते हैं, उनको भी आग्रह करना चाहिए कि वे भी जो पीढ़ी को भारत को जानने की जिज्ञासा जगाने के लिए एक टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन बहुत सरल उपाय है, और इसलिए मेरा आग्रह रहेगा कि आप सब इस बात को आगे बढ़ाइए। फ्रेंड्स, बीता साल हम सभी के लिए बहुत चुनौतियों का साल रहा, लेकिन इन चुनौतियों के बीच विश्व भर में फैले हमारे इंडियन डायस्पोरा ने जिस तरह कार्य किया है, अपना कर्तव्य निभाया है, वो भारत के लिए भी गर्व की बात है। यही तो हमारी परंपरा है, यही तो इस मिट्टी के संस्कार है। इस जगह से सोशल और पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप के लिए दुनिया भर में भारतीय मूल के साथियों पर भरोसा और मजबूत हो रहा है। हमारे आज के इस आयोजन के मुख्य अतिथि सूरीनाम के नए राष्ट्रपति श्रीमान चंद्रिका प्रसाद संतोखी जी, वे स्वयं भी इस सेवा भाव का एक शानदार उदाहरण है। और मैं ये भी कहूंगा कि इस कोरोना काल में विदेशों में रहने वाले हमारे कई भारतीय भाई बहनों ने भी अपना जीवन खोया है। मेरी उनके प्रति संवेदना है और उनके परिवारजनों के प्रति भी मैं परमात्मा बहुत शक्ति दे, ये प्रार्थना करता हूं। आज सूरीनाम के राष्ट्रपति जी ने उनके गर्मजोशी भरे शब्द और भारत के प्रति उनके स्नेह का भाव हम सबको हृदय को छू गया। उनके एक शब्द में, हर एक भाव में भारत के प्रति का जो उनका अहंभाव था वो प्रवाहित हो रहा था, प्रकट हो रहा था और हमें प्रेरित कर रहा था। उनकी तरह मैं भी आशा करता हूं कि हम शीघ्र ही मिलेंगे और हमें भारत में सूरीनाम के राष्ट्रपति जी का भव्य स्वागत करने का अवसर भी मिलेगा। बीते वर्ष में प्रवासी भारतीयों ने हर क्षेत्र में अपनी पहचान को और मजबूत किया है। साथियों, मेरी बीते महीनों में दुनिया के अनेक हेड ऑफ द स्टेट से चर्चा हुई है। स्टेट हेड्स ने इस बात का विशेष तौर पर जिक्र किया कि कैसे उनके देश में प्रवासी भारतीय डॉक्टर्स, पैरामेडिक्स और सामान्य भारतीय नागरिकों द्वारा किस प्रकार से सेवा हुई है। चाहे मंदिर हो, चाहे हमारे गुरुद्वारे हो, चाहे लंगर की हमारी महान परंपरा हो, हमारी अनेक छोटे मोटे सामाजिक, सांस्कृतिक, धार्मिक संगठनों ने सेवा भाव में अगुवाई की है और हर नागरिक की सेवा करने का काम इस कठिन परिस्थिति में भी किया है। ये दुनिया के हर देश में जब मुझे सुनने को मिलता है, कितना गर्व होता है। और आप अंदाज लगा सकते हैं, जब फोन पर मैं आपकी प्रशंसा सुनता था और दुनिया के हर नेता काफी समय आप ही के गुणगान करता था, और ये बात जब मैं हमारे साथियों से बांटता था, हर किसी का मन खुशियों से भर जाता था, गौरव होता था। आपके ये संस्कार दुनिया के हर कोने में उजागर हो रहे हैं। कौन भारतीय होगा जिसको अच्छा न लगता होगा। आप सभी ने जहां आप रह रहे हैं वहां ही नहीं बल्कि भारत में, भारत की कोविड से चल रही लड़ाई में भी हर प्रकार से सहयोग किया है। पीएम केयर्स में आपने जो योगदान दिया वो भारत में हेल्थ इंफ्रा उसको सशक्त करने में काम आ रहा है। इसके लिए मैं आप सभी का आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। साथियों, भारत के महान संत और दार्शनिक संत तिरुवल्लुवर ने दुनिया के सबसे प्राचीनतम भाषा, और ये हम गर्व से कहना चाहिए, दुनिया की सबसे प्राचीनतम भाषा तमिल, उस तमिल भाषा में संत तिरुवल्लुवर जी ने कहा है के डरिया किट इड्डुतम वंडरूंडा नान्नेल्प नाटिन तलई। इसका भाव है कि दुनिया की सर्वश्रेष्ठ भूमि वो है जो अपने विरोधियों से बुराइयां नहीं सीखती और जो अगर कभी कष्ट में भी आई तो दूसरों के कल्याण में कोई कमी नहीं करती। साथियों, आप सबने इस मंत्र को जी करके दिखाया है। हमारे भारत की हमेशा यही विशेषता रही है। शांति का समय हो या संकट का, हम भारतीयों ने हर परिस्थिति का हमेशा डट करके मुकाबला किया है। इस वजह से इस महान भूमि को लेकर एक अलग व्यवहार हमने देखा है। जब भारत ने कॉलोनियलिज्म के विरुद्ध मोर्चा खोला तो दुनिया के अनेक देशों में आजादी के संघर्ष के लिए ये प्रेरणा बन गया। जब भारत टेररिज्म के सामने खड़ा हुआ तो दुनिया को भी इस चुनौती से लड़ने का नया साहस मिला। साथियों, भारत आज करप्शन को खत्म करने के लिए टेक्नोलॉजी का ज्यादा से ज्यादा इस्तेमाल कर रहा है। लाखों करोड़ों रुपए जो पहले तमाम कमियों की वजह से गलत हाथों में पहुंच जाते थे, वो आज सीधे लाभार्थी के बैंक खाते में पहुंच रहे हैं। आपने देखा होगा, भारत ने जो नई व्यवस्थाएं विकसित की है, उनकी कोरोना के इस समय में वैश्विक संस्थाओं ने भी भूरी भूरी प्रशंसा की है। आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी से गरीब को एम्पावर करने का जो अभियान आज भारत में चल रहा है, उसकी चर्चा विश्व के हर कोने में है, हर स्तर पर है। भाइयों और बहनों, हमने दिखाया है कि रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के मामले में डेवलपिंग वर्ल्ड का कोई देश भी लीड ले सकता है। आज भारत का दिया वन सन, वन वर्ल्ड, वन ग्रिड, ये मंत्र दुनिया को भी अपील कर रहा है। साथियों, भारत का इतिहास गवाह है कि भारत के सामर्थ्य, भारतीयों के सामर्थ्य को लेकर जब भी किसी ने आशंका जताई, सारी आशंकाएं गलत साबित हुई। गुलामी के दौरान विदेश में बड़े बड़े विद्वान कहते थे कि भारत आजाद नहीं हो सकता क्योंकि ये तो बहुत बटा हुआ है। वो आशंकाएं गलत साबित हुई और हमने आजादी पाई। साथियों, जब भारत को आजादी मिली तो ये भी कहा गया कि इतना गरीब और इतना कम बड़ा भारत, कम पढ़ा लिखा भारत, ये भारत तो टूट जाएगा, बिखर जाएगा, डेमोक्रेसी तो यहां असंभव है। आज की सच्चाई यही है कि भारत एकजुट भी है और दुनिया में डेमोक्रेसी अगर सबसे मजबूत है, वाइब्रेंट है, जीवंत है, तो वो भारत ही है। भाइयों बहनों, आजादी के बाद ही दशकों तक ये नैरेटिव भी चला कि भारत गरीब, अशिक्षित है, इसलिए साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी में इन्वेस्टमेंट की संभावनाएं कम आकी गई। आज भारत का स्पेस प्रोग्राम, हमारा टेक स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम दुनिया में अग्रणी है। कोविड की चुनौती के साल में भी कई नए यूनिकॉर्न्स और सैकड़ों नए टेक स्टार्टअप्स भारत से ही निकल करके आए हैं। फ्रेंड्स, पैंडेमिक के इस दौर में भारत ने फिर दिखा दिया कि हमारा सामर्थ्य क्या है, हमारी क्षमता क्या है। इतना बड़ा देश, डेमोक्रेटिक देश, जिस एकजुटता के साथ खड़ा हुआ, उसकी मिसाल दुनिया में नहीं है। पीपीई किट्स हो, मास्क हो, वेंटिलेटर्स हो, टेस्टिंग किट्स हो, ये सब भारत बाहर से नहीं मंगाता था। आज इस कोरोना कालखंड में ही उसने अपनी ताकत बढ़ाई और आज भारत न सिर्फ इनमें सेल्फ रिलायंट बना है, बल्कि इनमें से कई प्रोडक्ट्स का एक्सपोर्ट भी करने लगा है। आज भारत दुनिया के सबसे कम फैटेलिटी रेट और सबसे तेज रिकवरी रेट, उन देशों में भारत एक है। आज भारत एक नहीं बल्कि 2 मेड इन इंडिया कोरोना वैक्सीन के साथ मानवता की सुरक्षा के लिए तैयार है। दुनिया की फार्मेसी होने के नाते दुनिया के हर जरूरतमंद तक जरूरी दवाएं पहुंचाने का काम भारत ने पहले भी किया है और आज भी कर रहा है। दुनिया आज सिर्फ भारत की वैक्सीन का इंतजार ही नहीं कर रही, बल्कि दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा वैक्सीनेशन प्रोग्राम भारत कैसे चलाता है, इस पर भी नजरें हैं। साथियों, इस वैश्विक महामारी के दौरान भारत ने जो सीखा वही अब आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान की प्रेरणा बन गया है। हमारे यहां कहा गया है, शतहस्त समाह सहस्त्रहस्त समकिर, यानी सैकड़ों हाथों से अर्जन करो लेकिन हजारों हाथों से बांटो। भारत की आत्मनिर्भरता के पीछे का भाव भी यही है। करोड़ों भारतीयों के परिश्रम से जो प्रोडक्ट्स भारत में बनेंगे, जो सॉल्यूशंस भारत में तैयार होंगे, उससे पूरी दुनिया का लाभ होगा। दुनिया इस बात को कभी नहीं भूल सकती है कि जब Y2K समय भारत की भूमिका क्या रही, भारत ने किस प्रकार से दुनिया को चिंता मुक्त किया था, इस मुश्किल में भी हमारी फार्मा इंडस्ट्री का रोल ये दिखाता है कि भारत जिस भी क्षेत्र में समर्थ होता है, उसका लाभ पूरी दुनिया तक पहुंचता है। साथियों, आज पूरी दुनिया को अगर भारत पर इतना ज्यादा ट्रस्ट है, तो इसमें आप सब प्रवासी भारतीयों का भी बहुत बड़ा योगदान है। आप जहां भी गए, भारत को, भारतीयता को साथ लेकर के गए। आप भारतीयता को जीते रहे। आप भारतीयता से लोगों को जगाते भी रहे हैं। और आप देखिए, फूड हो या फैशन हो, फैमिली वैल्यूज हो या बिजनेस वैल्यूज, आपने भारतीयता का प्रसार किया है। मेरा ये हमेशा से मानना रहा है कि भारत का कल्चर अगर दुनिया भर में लोकप्रिय हुआ है, तो मैगजीन्स, कुकबुक्स या मैनुअल से ज्यादा आप सभी के जीवन के कारण, आप सभी के आचरण के कारण, आप सभी के व्यवहार के कारण ये सब संभव हुआ है। भारत ने कभी भी कुछ भी दुनिया पर न थोपा है, न थोपने की कोशिश की है, न कभी थोपने का सोचा है। बल्कि दुनिया में आप सभी ने भारत के लिए एक जिज्ञासा पैदा की, एक इंटरेस्ट पैदा किया है। भले वो कौतुक से शुरू हुआ हो, लेकिन वो कन्विक्शन तक पहुंचा है। आज जब भारत आत्मनिर्भर बनने के लिए आगे बढ़ रहा है, तो यहां भी ब्रांड इंडिया की पहचान को मजबूत बनाने में आपका रोल अहम है। जब आप मेड इन इंडिया प्रोडक्ट्स का ज्यादा से ज्यादा यूज करेंगे, तो आपके इर्द गिर्द रहने वालों में भी इनको लेकर विश्वास बढ़ेगा। आपके कलीग्स को, आपके दोस्तों को जब आप मेड इन इंडिया प्रोडक्ट्स यूज करते हुए देखेंगे, तो क्या आपको इस पर गर्व नहीं होगा? टी से लेकर टेक्सटाइल और थेरेपी तक, ये कुछ भी हो सकता है। मैं तो आनंद होता है जब आज खादी दुनिया में आकर्षण का केंद्र बन रही है। इससे आप भारत के एक्सपोर्ट का वॉल्यूम तो बढ़ाएंगे ही, साथ ही भारत की रीच डायवर्सिटी को भी दुनिया तक पहुंचाएंगे। सबसे बड़ी बात, आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान के तहत आप दुनिया के गरीब से गरीब तक एफोर्डेबल और क्वालिटी सॉल्यूशन पहुंचाने का जरिया बनेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, भारत में इन्वेस्टमेंट हो या फिर बड़ी मात्रा में रेमिटेंसेस का कंट्रीब्यूशन, आपका योगदान अतुलनीय रहा है। आपकी एक्सपर्टाइज, आपके इन्वेस्टमेंट, आपके नेटवर्क्स, आपके अनुभव का लाभ हर भारतीय, पूरा हिंदुस्तान हमेशा हमेशा के लिए गौरव भी करता है और आपके लाभ के लिए वो हमेशा आतुर भी रहता है। इसके लिए हर जरूरी कदम उठाए भी जा रहे हैं ताकि आपको भी अवसर मिले और यहाँ की अपेक्षाएं भी पूरी हो। आप में से काफी लोग जानते हैं कि कुछ सप्ताह पहले ही पहली बार वैश्विक भारतीय वैज्ञानिक समिट, शॉर्ट फॉर्म में उसे कहा गया वैभव का आयोजन किया था। इस सम्मेलन में 70 देशों के 25,000 से ज्यादा साइंटिस्ट और एक्सपर्ट ने करीब 750 घंटों तक चर्चा की और इससे 80 सब्जेक्ट्स पर करीब 100 रिपोर्ट्स निकली जो कई क्षेत्रों में टेक्नोलॉजी और सिस्टम के विकास में काम आने वाली है। ये संवाद अब ऐसे ही जारी रहेगा। इसके अलावा बीते महीनों में भारत ने एजुकेशन से लेकर एंटरप्राइज तक सार्थक बदलाव के लिए स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स किए हैं। इसमें आपके इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए अपॉर्चुनिटीज का विस्तार हुआ है। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को प्रमोट करने के लिए प्रोडक्शन सब्सिडी स्कीम ये बहुत हुई है और बहुत कम समय में बहुत पॉपुलर हुई है। आप भी इसका भरपूर लाभ उठा सकते हैं। भारत सरकार हर समय हर पल आपके साथ आपके लिए खड़ी है। दुनिया भर में कोरोना लॉकडाउन से विदेशों में फंसे 45 लाख से ज्यादा भारतीयों को वंदे भारत मिशन के तहत रेस्क्यू किया गया। विदेशों में भारतीय समुदाय को समय पर सही मदद मिले, इसके लिए हर संभव प्रयास किए। पैंडेमिक के कारण विदेशों में भारतीयों के रोजगार सुरक्षित रहे, इसके लिए डिप्लोमेटिक स्तर पर हर संभव कोशिश की गई। गल्फ सहित अनेक देशों से लौटे साथियों के लिए स्किल्ड वर्कर्स अराइवल डाटाबेस फॉर एम्प्लॉयमेंट सपोर्ट यानी स्वदेश नाम की नई पहल शुरू की गई। इस डाटाबेस का उद्देश्य वंदे भारत मिशन में लौट रहे वर्कर्स की स्किल मैपिंग करना और उन्हें भारतीय और विदेशी कंपनियों से जोड़ना है। इसी तरह दुनिया भर में भारतीय समुदाय के साथ बेहतर कनेक्टिविटी के लिए रिश्ता नाम का नया पोर्टल लॉन्च किया गया है। इस पोर्टल से मुश्किल समय में अपने समुदाय से कम्युनिकेट करना, उन तक तेजी से पहुंचना आसान होगा। इस से दुनिया के हमारे साथ एक्सपर्टाइज का भारत के विकास में उपयोग करने में भी बहुत मदद मिलेगी। साथियों, यहां से अब हम 75वें तरफ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। अगला प्रवासी भारतीय दिवस आजादी के 75वें वर्ष के समारोह से भी जुड़ेगा। महात्मा गांधी, नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस, स्वामी विवेकानंद ऐसे अनगिनत महान व्यक्तित्वों की प्रेरणा से दुनिया भर के भारतीय समुदाय ने आजादी में अहम भूमिका निभाई। ऐसे में ये समय उन साथियों, उन सेनानियों को भी याद करने का है जिन्होंने भारत से बाहर रहते हुए भारत की आजादी के लिए काम किया। मेरा विश्व भर में फैले हुए भारतीय समुदाय के लोगों से हमारे मिशन में बैठे हुए सभी लोगों से ये आग्रह रहेगा कि हम एक डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म तैयार करें, एक तैयार करें और उस पोर्टल में ऐसे प्रवासी भारतीयों का जिन्होंने आजादी के जंग में विशेष भूमिका निभाई है, उनकी सारी तथ्य आधारित चीजें उसमें रखी जाए। जहां भी फोटो उपलब्ध है फोटो रखी जाए। विश्व भर में कब किसने क्या किया, कैसे किया, इन बातों का उसमें वर्णन हो। हर भारतीय के पराक्रम का, पुरुषार्थ का, त्याग का, बलिदान का, भारत माता के प्रति उसकी भक्ति का गुणगान हो, उनकी जीवन गाथाएं हो, जिन्होंने विदेश में रहते हुए भारत को आजाद कराने में अपना योगदान दिया। और मैं तो ये भी चाहूंगा कि अब जो क्विज कंपटीशन के लिए जो क्विज तैयार होंगे उसमें विश्व भर में ऐसे भारतीय समुदाय के योगदान पर भी क्विज का एक अलग चैप्टर हो। 500, 700, 1000 वो सवाल हो जो विश्व भर में फैले हुए भारतीयों के विषय में भी जिज्ञासु लोगों को लिए ज्ञान का एक अच्छा सरोवर बन जाए। ऐसे सारे कदम हमारे बंधन को मजबूत करेंगे, आने वाली पीढ़ियों को प्रेरित करेंगे। आप सब इतनी बड़ी तादाद में आज वर्चुअली मिले हैं। कोरोना के कारण रूबरू में मिलना संभव नहीं हुआ है, लेकिन भारत का हर नागरिक हमेशा यही चाहता है कि आप स्वस्थ रहें, आप सब सुरक्षित रहें, अपना और देश का नाम रोशन करते रहें। इसी कामना के साथ मैं फिर एक बार सूरीनाम के राष्ट्रपति जी का हृदयपूर्वक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। उन्होंने जो हम सबको प्रेरणा दी है, हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं, वे सचमुच में भारत का गौरव बढ़ाने वाले उन महापुरुषों में से एक हैं। मैं उनका भी विशेष धन्यवाद करता हूं और इसी कामना के साथ आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister of India. We are honored by your gracious presence and grateful to you for your kind words of appreciation and encouragement to the overseas Indian community. We have reached the segment for announcement of the Bharat Ko Janiye Quiz Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, the Government of India launched the Bharat Ko Janiye Quiz in 2015 with the aim to strengthen its engagement with young overseas Indians and to encourage them to know more about their country of origin, Bharat. We are happy to share that the third edition of Bharat Ko Janiye Quiz was recently concluded. In a first of its kind initiative, the third edition was held completely in a digital mode. It gives us immense happiness to announce the winners of the third edition of the Bharat Ko Janiye Quiz competition.
The winners of the Bharat Ko Janiye Quiz competition will be announced in 3 categories: persons of Indian origin, non-resident Indians, and foreign nationals. The top 5 winners under each category are being awarded the gold, the silver, and bronze medals, along with 2 consolation prizes in each category. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in applauding the efforts of the winners of the Bharat Ko Janiye Quiz competition. First, in the category Persons of Indian Origin. The gold medal goes to Mr. Bhartendu Sharma from Ireland. Silver medal goes to Mr. Jaydev Golakota from the USA. The bronze medal has been won by Mr. Varun Chayapati from Germany. The first consolation prize in Persons of Indian Origin category goes to Mr. Dhairesh Patel from New Zealand. and the second consolation prize to Mr. Arun Kumar Gunasekaran from Spain. In the category non-resident Indians, the gold medal goes to Mr. Hemant Agarwal from the USA. Silver medal goes to Mr. Rashid Hussain from Saudi Arabia. Bronze medal has been won by Mr. Rahul from Poland. Consolation prize to Mr. Sushil Chapekar from the Republic of Korea and to Mr. Rohit Birla from Qatar. In the category foreign nationals, the gold medal goes to Mr. Parvesh Kumar Ramsohuk from Mauritius. Silver medal goes to Ms. Deepa Ramsohuk from Mauritius. The bronze medal has been won by Ms. Shanta Jyoti Dukaran from Trinidad and Tobago. And the two consolation prizes go to Mr. Ali Turba from Lebanon and to Mohammad Nurul Amin from Bangladesh. On behalf of the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, I congratulate all the winners of the third edition of Bharat Ko Janiye quiz. We also thank all the participants for their enthusiastic participation.
Honorable External Affairs Foreign Secretary, Secretary CPB and OIA, Joint Secretary OIA 2, dear viewers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Ministry of External Affairs, I convey our sincere gratitude to all the distinguished guests for joining us on this very special morning. We would request all the viewers to remain connected to us as the next segment of the
A very good morning to one and all present here. A very warm welcome on the occasion of 16th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas 2021. May I now request everybody to please raise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Please be seated. I now request Consul General Dr. Raman Puri to please come on to the dais and deliver the welcome address.
Namaskar. Very good morning to all of you. Heartiest congratulations on the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Dear friends, on this occasion of the 16th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, I would like to extend a very warm welcome on my own behalf and on behalf of the entire Consulate General of India here in Dubai. This is a time when we celebrate our deep connections with the diaspora. We celebrate the bond you share with your motherland. being brand ambassadors of India in different parts of the world, you always carry India in your heart, and that is something which we are celebrating today. We all heard the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, applaud the extraordinary contributions made by the Indian diaspora worldwide, and especially in the year 2020, when the world was facing an unprecedented crisis. Today, as we continue to deal with this crisis, the members of the Indian diaspora worldwide are standing shoulder to shoulder with their brothers and sisters from all over the globe, helping each one to deal not only with the crisis at hand, but also to make sure that we emerge stronger as we go forward. Prime Minister mentioned how India is leveraging technology to empower the poorer sections of the society, to reduce corruption, to fast-track reforms, to improve the ease of doing business and the ease of living in India. He also mentioned how the Vande Bharat mission was a huge success, as we were able to repatriate almost 45 lakh individuals from different parts of the world. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for making the Vande Bharat mission from UAE to India a huge success. The Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, as you are aware, is a time when we celebrate the return of Mahatma Gandhi, one of the most well-regarded Pravasis, who came from South Africa to India on this day. And of course, being the father of the nation, how he gave the principles of non-violence, ahimsa, and peace, the principles which are as relevant today as they were more than 70 years ago. Dear friends, you have all contributed immensely to the country of your residence, your second home, the UAE. The UAE is a shining example in the contemporary modern world to play the role of a catalyst in global peace, regional stability, and setting new benchmarks for public welfare, such as distribution of the COVID vaccine to all residents living here in the UAE. It is a great honor for you and for us to be here in this land, and most importantly, the vision of the leadership of this country, which has enabled UAE to deliver on the promises in fighting this pandemic in ways and means which actually outshine many of the more developed countries. And I think the Indian community has played an extraordinary role in this success. Yesterday, we celebrated the Youth Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Conference, and we came across a number of innovative ideas propagated by the young and talented youth of India and from the Indian diaspora. A couple of them were worth exploring for the welfare of the public and also to gain experience from the youth of different countries, creating a pool of new age thinkers, thought leaders who could provide solutions to some of the most vexed problems faced by the world today. Since Dubai is so close to India, many of you get an opportunity to visit India quite often, and I'm sure over your travels in the past few decades, you must have witnessed firsthand the transformation and development which India has witnessed. Today, you see the Government of India putting enormous emphasis on innovation, on the startup ecosystem, and making sure that India provides the answers for global problems. As we see, the world is going to undertake perhaps the largest inoculation exercise ever undertaken in the history of mankind, and India will be playing a fair share in that whole exercise, not only in the shape of being a very large producer of the vaccines for India and for the world, but also making sure that 1/6 of humanity which lives in India is provided the vaccine in a timely and streamlined manner. With more and more emphasis to make India as a global manufacturing hub, and the focus of the government to make India Aatmanirbhar, which is also the theme for this year's PBD conference, it is a clarion call for all of you to not only look at India as an attractive destination for investment, but also being a brand ambassador for your country to propagate the message to your Arab partners or other policy influencers in your circle. The Indian economy is expected to be on a V-shaped recovery, with all macroeconomic indicators reflecting the same. And we obviously are factoring in a sharp decline in the COVID cases, which India has been witnessing over the past few months. India is also on the path of playing a crucial role in making sure that some of the poorer countries are able to receive the vaccine at an affordable cost. Without taking much of your time, let me assure you that the Government of India is deeply committed to the welfare of the Indian diaspora and has taken several innovative steps, such as the launch of the Pravasi Rishta portal to help you connect with several of the issues pertaining to the expatriate community. We in the consulate are at your service and will be happy to connect you with the ministry of a particular organization if you have some specific plans for investment in India. Consulate, on its part, as you are well aware, has been conducting a series of events, sector-specific events, and we've already covered health and food security. And going forward, next month, we would be organizing a sector-specific event on education, upskilling, and retraining. And going forward, we would be focusing on artificial intelligence and IT. In the following financial year, we would obviously be picking up other sectors too. So I would like to conclude by saying that we are immensely thankful to each and every one of you for the enormous role you are playing here as the ambassador of India, and also to say that without your support, the consulate would not have been able to achieve what we have been able to in the past 1 year, and we continue to look forward to your support and participation in all our endeavors in this coming year. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. We will now be connecting to the live telecast of the speeches of our Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and Commerce and Industries Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, which will be followed by a panel discussion on role of diaspora in Aatmanirbhar Bharat, after which we shall all meet in the foyer area for light snacks. Thank you. Over to the live telecast.
CPB and OIA, Ministry of External Affairs, to kindly present his opening remarks. Sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Pravasis and panelists across the world, and welcome to this first plenary session of the 16th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention. You have just heard the Honorable Prime Minister, and he spoke eloquently about how Indians live their culture and their heritage wherever they are across the world as members of the diaspora. He also mentioned to you about the key features of the clarion call that he made of Aatmanirbhar Bharat and the need to bring about brand India. We are indeed in very exciting times, and the transformations are sweeping around us, bringing changes in various aspects of our life and our interactions. In many ways, India is in a sweet spot, and the aspirations of the people are high. Our aspirations are connected with the success of our diaspora in different parts of the world. In today's session, we shall first have a ministerial segment which will feature the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and that will be followed by the address by the Honorable Minister for Commerce and Industry, Shri Piyush Goyal. After that, we shall move into the panel discussion with the panelists across the world. I now have the distinct honor and privilege to invite the Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, for his remarks. Sir.
Thank you. My ministerial colleague, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Secretary Shri Sanjay Bhattacharya ji, my ministerial colleague Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Secretary Shri Sanjay Bhattacharya ji, distinguished participants, friends, Namaskar. It is a great pleasure to join you all at the session on the role of the diaspora in Aatmanirbhar Bharat. In many ways, the theme highlights the global implications of the Aatmanirbhar approach. It also helps create new avenues for stronger connections with the Pravasis. As you would all be aware, the objective of Aatmanirbhar Bharat is to build greater national capacities so that we can make a stronger contribution globally. Even otherwise, this was a laudable goal. But the experience of the COVID pandemic has driven home the need for more trusted, resilient, reliable, and redundant supply chains. Involving the diaspora in that endeavor is natural. To start with, they have always been enthusiastic contributors to nation building. Secondly, as high achievers in their own societies, they can bring to bear resources, technology, best practices, and innovations to the task. Third, they truly help in giving this ambitious exercise a global footprint. I therefore hope that today's session can serve as an inspiration to make this a larger shared enterprise. The initial steps for Aatmanirbharta were taken even during the course of the pandemic, and I think the Prime Minister in his address spoke about it. Whether it was the production of PPEs and masks, or indeed of ventilators and testing kits, we demonstrated an ability to rise to the challenge. That determination is now becoming visible as a larger approach to our national capabilities and prospects. A bold scheme of production-linked incentives in 13 key sectors offers the potential of transforming manufacturing in the country. Equally important, it would have direct consequences for employment and inclusiveness. These are all steps in the making of a new India, and it is only appropriate that our diaspora is a full participant in that effort. The Prime Minister, speaking on this subject, declared, I quote, "When India becomes self-reliant, it does not advocate a self-centered system. In India's self-reliance, there is a concern for the whole world's happiness, cooperation, and peace, unquote. I underline this message because it is important that the world be fully aware of the global nature of India's objectives. Engagement with the world is fundamental to our beliefs and traditions. After all, during the pandemic, India not only met its own medicine requirements, but supplied the rest of the world. Similarly, we not only brought our own people back home, but those of our neighbors as well. And as we now look at the supply of vaccines, Prime Minister has assured that we will live up fully to our international responsibilities. Certainly, it is our ambition to build the capacities and strengths commensurate to one of the leading economies of the world. To do that, we recognize the need to think, plan, and act more strategically. What is underway may be a national endeavor, but it is one very much based on global partnerships. Let us note that India is consistently making it easier to do business today, both for domestic and foreign players. Our objective may be to increase our own trade, investments, and services, but they will surely contribute to a larger global rebalancing. And India, with greater capacities, can be an additional engine of growth for the global economy. It will also be a trusted partner and a reliable supplier in line with global norms and practices. So, I look forward to listening to insights, ideas, and suggestions that this session will surely bring out. Pravasis have been intrinsic partners to our national growth and modernization. I'm sure that their vantage point will bring a greater richness into the conversation that we are having on this important subject today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. May I now request Honorable Minister for Commerce and Industry, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, to kindly address the distinguished guests.
Friends, Namaskar. Indians have a presence in nearly 7 continents. You are the face of India and our culture across the world. No matter where we are bound to India. Borders may separate our houses, but not our hearts, not our homes. Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, the vision of former Prime Minister Shraddheya Atal Bihari Vajpayee, since 2003 has connected you with your motherland, and I am sure this year's engagement will certainly further enhance our partnership, our togetherness. Despite facing severe adversities, you have become successful in various walks of life. You are truly living examples of how to convert a crisis into an opportunity. Your determination, dedication, and devotion have been a beacon of hope for India as we come out of COVID. You did take a very tough decision to leave India and explore opportunities across the world. Similarly, our government had to take very, very strong steps during the COVID period to come out of COVID, come out stronger, and come out better so that we can truly find our place in the global economies. I don't know if you remember the movie Swadesh, in which Shah Rukh Khan says, "Ye jo desh hai tera, Swadesh hai tera, ye wo bandhan hai जो कभी टूट नहीं सकता." मैं समझता हूं वही बंधन आज भी आपको हर वर्ष प्रवासी भारत दिवस सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए देश के साथ जोड़ता है. ये जो बदला हुआ सोच है, द चेंजिंग माइंडसेट, इसी से देश बदल रहा है, देश आगे बढ़ रहा है. We are now moving from having potential to harnessing that potential. Swami Vivekananda had said, dare to be free, dare to go as far as your thoughts lead you, and dare to carry these thoughts throughout your life. The disruptions due to COVID have hit us with the realization that we need to dare to do great things. Otherwise, we may lose our ability to be a global leader. This is the philosophy behind Aatmanirbhar Bharat. It is not about closing doors, but to open the doors wider, to build India's capability and capacity and our resilience with speed, skill, and scale. The mantras the Honorable Prime Minister has followed right from his days in Gujarat. We are working simultaneously to bring about a quantum leap in our quality, in our productivity, in our efficiency, so that Indian industry can truly expand our export basket, make it bigger, better, and broader. We are aggressively exploring new markets to enhance the reach of Indian products globally. The Indian diaspora living abroad have more familiarity with consumer markets. You have unique insights into consumer behavior and can guide Indian industry to develop customized products for foreign markets. Prime Minister Modi had once said, we want to turn brain drain into brain gain. And with your support, this is very much possible. Your presence and your contribution in almost all fields for global growth and competence has led to the confidence about Indian talent, Indian skills. India has gradually grown in stature, strength, and ability to support the world's economic recovery. A lot of it thanks to your contributions. Through rapid structural reforms, India is strengthening the entire ecosystem to achieve the Honorable Prime Minister's dream of a $5 trillion economy by 2025. Our holistic approach consists in improving ease of starting a business, ease of doing a business, and ease of growing our businesses. With a robust startup culture, the lowest ever corporate tax rates, uniform tax regime through the GST, a very large production-linked incentive program aggregating $30 billion over the next 5 years, a national infrastructure pipeline of over $1.4 trillion, national broadband mission, the largest renewable energy program in the world, hoping to expand to 450 gigawatt by 2030, liberalized FDI norms, and opening up several new sectors like defense, mining, coal, space sector, capital markets. We believe India is not only looking to a better present, but also creating a brighter future with a progressive outlook for the future generations to work upon. India is growing rapidly and offers a plethora of opportunities for Indians both in India and across the world. Our wish is that our brothers and sisters from across the world become the first to avail these opportunities. As the agenda of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas in 2015 was the 3 C's: connect, celebrate, and contribute. Let us commit ourselves this year to 4 D's. Let us fulfill our duty to our motherland with determination and devotion and develop India into a leader, a participant in resilient global supply chains, into a dominant player in international trade. Let us all work collectively towards a more prosperous future for our children. Let us all work collectively to find India's rightful place in the comity of nations. My best wishes to all of you across the world, our Pravasi Bharatiyas, our brothers and sisters. May you all remain safe. May you all remain healthy. God bless all of you and your families. Happy New Year. Namaskar.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, External Affairs Minister of India, and Honorable Minister for Commerce and Industry for sharing their vision on the role of diaspora in Aatmanirbhar Bharat. To take forward the discussions, may I now request Shri Sanjay Bhattacharya, Secretary CPB and OIA, Ministry of External Affairs, to kindly steer the technical segment of the plenary session 1 of 16th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention. Sir, over to you. To take forward the discussions, may I now request Shri Sanjay Bhattacharya, Secretary CPB and OIA, Ministry of External Affairs, to kindly steer the technical segment of the plenary
Thank you
session
very
1
much,
of
Neha.
16th Pravasi
We
Bharatiya
now
Divas
welcome
Convention.
the
Sir,
panelists
over to you.
to the first technical segment in this plenary on the role of diaspora to Aatmanirbhar Bharat. You have just heard two scintillating addresses by the Minister for External Affairs and the Minister for Commerce and Industry, who have outlined the concept of Aatmanirbhar Bharat, as well as the very remarkable role that the diaspora can play in this. As the External Affairs Minister mentioned, Aatmanirbhar Bharat is not looking inwards, but it is really of integrating with the global economy. We also have to become competitive so that we can provide scale and quality. The Commerce Minister, in his remarks, also mentioned various options for the contribution of the diaspora to this particular understanding of Aatmanirbhar Bharat. Friends, we have a very distinguished panel of scholars and practitioners from the US, Singapore, Australia, the United Arab Emirates, UK, and of course from India. Keeping in view the time difference, I will invite the scholar from US to come in first. Professor Arvind Panagaria is Professor of Economics, the Jagdish Bhagwati Professor of Indian Political Economy at Columbia University. He was also the first Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog, has served in various capacities in the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, IMF, and UNCTAD. His book, which was titled India, the Emerging Giant, is something that most of us have gone through, and I think it remains very relevant as we look at this new role for India in the days ahead. I would invite Dr. Panagaria to come and give us his remarks and his observations on what could be the policy discourse and the policy contours that would be relevant for the theme. What would be the possibilities for achieving success through perhaps higher education, technology, and how could we lobby the interests in the United States? Professor Panagaria, the floor is yours. The normal format is 6 to 7 minutes for each speaker. After that, we shall have an interactive session. Professor Panagaria, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. Friends and colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, good evening, wherever you are. Let me just say, first start out on my home turf, which is education. When I came to the United States, I remember in those days, we economists used to talk in terms of brain drain. And this was an area of specialization, specialized research. There were proposals actually made in those days by none other than my own mentor, Jagdish Bhagwati, about taxing the educated Indians who go abroad because the country had spent money on them, and in the following several decades, of course, this discourse completely changed. Brain drain became, as Mr. Piyush Goyal mentioned, brain gain or brain trust. What we have seen is circulation. So, many of us who came to the United States or other countries, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, have then gone back to serve in India, to work with Indians temporarily or permanently and so forth. In the policy making in India, for instance, very early work that got done, which led to the adoption of the reforms and so forth, did come actually from the United States. A famous book by Jagdish Bhagwati and Padma Desai. Subsequently, many of the Indians went from the United States, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Shankaracharya, Rakesh Mohan, and in the later part, I myself went back to India as well and participated in the policy making. So, the world has really become one. Circulation of brains has happened. Now, in the area of higher education in particular, I think, the scope for expansion is that much more. That is still a very, very highly underexploited resource. Partly, of course, the Indian higher education policy needs to change a bit as well, become more accommodative of foreign universities. But also, perhaps there has been some coordination failure. All of us who live here also like to visit India in the summers, in the winters, whenever there is a break, but also on leave and so forth. But the coordination has been an issue, and it occurs to me that a good entrepreneur ought to actually create a portal where all those Indians who want to come from the United States, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, can actually go to the website, post their CVs, express their interest, and then institutions in India that have an interest can look for what the right match is. Also, I think now that online platforms have gathered steam during COVID, it seems to me that the use of the talent abroad it becomes that much easier as well through online programs and so on. So, but particularly, of course, for starting any kind of degree programs, one would require changes to the Indian higher education policy, which I believe are underway currently. So that's one area. Information technology has been, of course, another area. And this is where really, in my thinking, kind of the change from brain drain to brain gain and brain trust began to happen, when particularly the millennium bug happened and large number of Indians came to the United States at that time to fix the millennium bug in the United States. And that sort of, tied into the development of the IT industry in India. And then, of course, the Silicon Valley was very much heavily populated by the Indian entrepreneurs, Indian tech experts, and so forth. And that kind of, led to collaborations back in Bangalore, then in Hyderabad, and so forth. So this was clearly a case of collaboration, and this is a field, and it's no accident actually that IT industry was one of the first ones to succeed post-liberalization. Diaspora had an important role to play there. Let me also say that now Indians, are in almost every field in the countries that they have gone in. Perhaps, when I look at the United States, there is hardly any field left where we are not present. Perhaps the only one where we don't do as well is sports. But if you look at the universities, professors are in almost every major university, in every major field, science, art, you name it. But now Indians are very heavily present in politics as well. So they are also representing Indian interests The Indian diaspora have come of age, playing very critical role in promoting Indian interests. People like Ashley Tallis were very important players in forging the nuclear deal on the US side, we got the vice president now in the United States who is of Indian origin. There are several members in the Congress, Ro Khanna, Ami Bera, and so forth. And similarly in the United Kingdom, we got the Secretary of the Home Secretary, Chancellor of Exchequer, you name it. So our clout is very much there. I think as we go forward, India goes into the 8 to 10% growth rate in the post-COVID era. This collaboration, the role of diaspora is only going to expand, and there is a huge scope in higher education, information technology, policy collaboration, and so forth as we go forward. So thank you very much. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Professor Panagaria, for that very expansive overview of how the process moved and how brain drain became brain trust. And it led to circulation. And you explained how then that led to inputs into policy in various areas, how the new Indians came in, and now we are in politics in various different parts of the world. And that then becomes like a power of leverage. Thank you so much. We thank you for taking time out, because I believe it must be midnight or past that already in the US. We now move on and we move to India. We have with us Mr. Amitabh Kant, the Chief Executive Officer of Niti Aayog. Mr. Kant has also worked for many years in various projects of promoting public-private partnership. And I think the kind of success that he has achieved in the field of branding, the various branding ideas that he had, it started perhaps with God's own country for the state of Kerala, and then Incredible India, Startup India, Make in India. These have been incredible successes. And these were also campaigns which went on for a quest for excellence. So as we move to Aatmanirbhar Bharat, one of the things that we will have to achieve, and Prime Minister has mentioned that as well, is quality. May I invite Mr. Kant to speak on what he would think would be the role of the diaspora for branding in this Aatmanirbhar Bharat quest, and any other theme that he would wish to. Mr. Kant, please.
Thank you, Sanjay. I'm really happy to be a part of this panel on Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Throughout the world, the Indian diaspora has uniquely positioned itself as a community that has not only made significant economic contributions, but also played a very major role in building up the nations where they lived. The success of the Indian diaspora is a story of entrepreneurship, resilience, and a great pursuit of excellence. Our diaspora has contributed significantly to our economy in terms of remittances, making India the largest receiver of remittances in the world. The Indian diaspora also reflects the strength, capabilities, and characteristics of India, and hence will have a very major and a critical role in building the vision of an Aatmanirbhar Bharat. First of all, I must say that Aatmanirbhar Bharat is not inward looking, and it is not about protectionism. It aims to make India domestically competitive and globally competitive, and to build domestic capabilities so that we are able to serve not just domestic markets, but international ones, and become an integral part of global supply chains. And without India integrating itself as a very key player in the global supply chains, it will not be feasible for India to grow at high rates, as Dr. Panagaria said, over a long period of time. And therefore, Aatmanirbhar Bharat is about making India self-confident and self-reliant to take on global competition. It is about driving India's socio-economic transformation. In my career, as you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to do several brand campaigns. We did the God's Own Country and later the Incredible India initiative and later the Make in India. And my belief is that Aatmanirbhar Bharat is about making in India for the world. And therefore, the need of the hour is to build a brand India that encompasses quality and excellence and that provides the world's finest products to world-class excellence. And therefore, what it spells out is that we should be producing to quality and we should be producing to quality in a very, very competitive manner. And without doing this and without becoming globally competitive, it will not be possible for India to penetrate global markets. And therefore, each one of you will have to play a key role. Each one of our diaspora will have to play a key role in building Aatmanirbhar Bharat and building brand India. We've seen some significant reforms over the last few years, and especially in 2020, we've bitten the hard bullet of reforms. And these reforms have the potential to transform India's socio-economic landscape over the coming years. India's evolved as an innovative nation, home to the second largest startup ecosystem in the world now with a vast number of unicorns. We are fostering a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship that will drive technology adoption and growth. We have also made massive technological leaps. We are the only country with over 1 billion biometric, over 1 billion bank accounts, and over 1 billion smartphones. Our data costs are amongst the lowest in the world. Our space program is a great example of the leap forward that we've made. Our digital payment system is now a global best practice. The unified payment interface, which is just 4-year-old, does more transactions than Amex. And with the Indian diaspora represented across top corporate boardrooms, venture capital funds, research institutes, think tanks, and labs, they are uniquely placed to promote investment and the flow of ideas to and from India. Let me focus on R&D, innovation, and tourism as potential examples to illustrate. In previous PBD events, the importance of partnership in R&D and education has been highlighted by the Honorable Prime Minister. India is now home to leading research institutes and has instituted several schemes to enable the overseas scientific community to conduct high-end R&D activities in India. The diaspora can play an important role in promoting India as an R&D destination, leveraging our inherent strength of an educated workforce and world-class academic institutions. Several of our top institutes, such as IITs and IIMs, are attracting diaspora to play a key role. Many of them are involved through alumni network. And I would encourage the diaspora to explore India as a potential R&D destination and work with us. And we in Niti Aayog will be very delighted to partner you in developing India as a premier R&D destination, leveraging our inherent strength. Let me talk about the vibrant startup ecosystem, because India has been cultivating a thriving startup ecosystem. We now have the second largest startup ecosystem in the world. We have over 55,000 startups, 34 unicorns, and another 52 companies have the potential to become unicorns by 2022. The Indian diaspora has played a leading role in the development of the economy in the information age. Many other Indians have played a critical role to the development of many of the now ubiquitous apps and services we use now. And the Indian startup ecosystem would benefit immensely from the experiences of our diaspora.
And the Indian diaspora is uniquely placed to promote India as an innovation destiny and invest in it. We have a favorable policy environment, an educated workforce, and a growing economy. And this startup ecosystem will grow and boom in the coming years. They will actually be the key drivers of Indian economy. And therefore, the Indian diaspora must have a stake in these startups. The third area I would like to talk about is tourism, where I've worked extensively and I realized the potential of it to drive economic growth and job creation. We have a vast number of tourism attractions, and the Indian diaspora is uniquely positioned to be its brand ambassador. They should become the key ambassadors of promoting India in religious tourism, leisure tourism, ecotourism, adventure tourism. And India has the finest products in the world, totally unexplored. And therefore, the diaspora promoting it can be a very key catalyst in making India the destination of choice for the rest of the world. The diaspora can also provide feedback on facilities, infrastructure, connectivity. Please work with us on how to build India as a world-class tourism destination, and I will personally like to collaborate with you in this exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, the diaspora has a critical role to play in ensuring an Aatmanirbhar Bharat. We will work together with you to ensure the success of India's growth story and our goals in becoming Aatmanirbhar. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
That we all look forward to, a sense of optimism. Thanks for clarifying that Aatmanirbhar Bharat is not protectionism, that Aatmanirbhar Bharat is really integrating with the global economy and into the global value chains. And it was so eloquently put out how Make in India could become Make for the world. The importance that you highlighted about the diaspora and their positioning in various global boardrooms, in the entrepreneurship sector, in various research labs, in academics, and how they would then be uniquely placed to leverage and bring advantage to India. You talked about how data and the digital world is now coming about in this age of technology. Innovation is very important, and how the diaspora can play a very important role in leveraging all that towards the common objective of Aatmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you, Mr. Kant, for your remarks just now. We will next move to Singapore, and we have Mr. Piyush Gupta. It is a great pleasure to introduce Piyush, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the DBS Group, which has also got interests in India. Mr. Gupta is an icon of the financial sector and has global recognition. Sitting in Singapore, he also is in the Advisory Committee on Ethical Use of Artificial Intelligence and Data, and was recently recognized with a public service star by the President of Singapore in 2020. Mr. Gupta is also a trustee of the Singapore Indian Development Association. But I would request Mr. Gupta to speak from the vantage point of being in Singapore, where we have such key business and economic interests, and to let us know, as these transformations are taking place, particularly in East Asia, how India can benefit as the manufacturing centers move towards other locations, how India can have this particular opportunity to attract more of the manufacturing facilities that we would definitely wish to have as part of Aatmanirbhar Bharat. What would be the role of the diaspora in this? And also perhaps, since you are such an icon in the financial sector, how that could particularly play a role in Aatmanirbhar Bharat, the financial services. Mr. Gupta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sanjay. It's a real pleasure to be on the panel for this time's Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Also to be with friends, Amitabh Khan, Deepak Bagda. It's good to see all of you again. I hope we get to meet again in person. So as soon as travel is permitted. I thought I would start my comments by broadening the frame a little bit. It's a suggestion. So I do understand that the principal focus of Aatmanirbhar Bharat is the manufacturing sector, as we've traditionally known it. But I think it's worth reflecting on some mega trends and therefore thinking about a slightly broader frame. Quite clearly, manufacturing is important. I think there's a mega trend happening in manufacturing, which makes this a seminal moment. One is to do with the need for resiliency in supply chains. The shift from just in time to just in case is on us. And as a consequence, a lot of people are increasingly thinking about how to make resiliency through looking at more than one supplier or supply source in the supply chains. But I think you have to mirror that with another reality, and that is geopolitics. The tensions between US and China are pushing large numbers of companies, multinationals as well as East Asian companies, to rethink their concentrated presence in a single place, which is China. We are seeing that, and therefore recognizing this geopolitical reality as well as the mega trend around resiliency certainly creates some opportunities. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. The second mega trend is worth reflecting on is the services sector. And it's interesting because even though that's not typically included within the frame of Aatmanirbhar Bharat, the reality is that what the COVID has caused us over the last 6 months is a dramatic shift in people's thinking on both digital consumption and digital production. Healthcare, education services, financial services, a whole slew of services are beginning to get consumed digitally at a pace and at a scale that we've not seen before. Increasingly as well, people are beginning to get more comfortable with work from anywhere. Now, this has profound implications for India because the BPO sector and our capacity to do work off stream and away from home is the core which will empower both of this, the capacity to produce digitally anywhere and the capacity to service demand in a whole host of other countries. So I do think we should think about expanding our vision for what we can do in self-reliant India. We can actually push a lot of services out into the region on the back of this trend. The third observation is the third mega trend is actually the trend of agriculture. I think somebody referred to it earlier. This idea of resiliency is touching in agriculture as much as it is touching the supply chain of manufacturing. People saw in the middle of the pandemic that access to food supplies was a challenge. And therefore, thinking through how do you actually reshape your agriculture sourcing, not only staple crops, but whole range of other agricultural products. But more than that, the processed goods that come from agriculture is being rethought massively across the world. Now, given the agriculture policy reform we're trying to do in India, I do think thinking about agriculture and its downstream impact, processed foods, is another big area we should be thinking about. And again, it's not traditionally thought of in the scope of Aatmanirbhar Bharat. So my first comment is this: I think we should broaden the scope and frame, recognizing the mega trends and the opportunities that India can leverage on thereof. My second comments really relate to what can the diaspora do? Really think about what does it take to create capacity, self-reliance and capacity. To simplify it, I basically say you need to make sure that you have a good policy framework. You have talent and IP. You have, in most cases, the need for anchors and critical mass to scale. And finally, you need financial resources. Now, if you think of these, I'm really actually quite bullish and optimistic about the policy framework and the policy reform that has happened in India over the last few years, and particularly 2020. And whether it's land policy with close to 4,000 special economic zones and 500,000 hectares of land, whether it is labor policy reform, whether it is the productivity incentives. Believe me, when I sit outside India and look inwards, people are noticing and observing these policy changes. So we can check the box on that one. I'm not going to talk a little too much about talent. I think Professor Arvind Panagaria and Amitabh spoke eloquently about the talent and the R&D capabilities. But I do think that that's an advantage that we have. I'll talk a little bit more about item number 3 and 4. How do you anchor scale and how do you bring people in? And particularly in manufacturing, this has been the model that's been successful in East Asia. If you look at most of the Asian tigers and Asian dragons, you look even at China, they crowded in multinationals. They crowded in big companies and created an ecosystem of supply chain suppliers around those. I think this is an area which can have tremendous benefit for India, and particularly now, in the context of the shift of the supply chain, the China plus one requirement, it is something that we should focus on. Now, let's recognize one thing. The reality is that the diaspora owners of real large capital are few. I mean, the big groups, the Hindujas are there. There's some owners of big groups in the Middle East and the US, but by and large, not huge. However, the thing to remember is the influencers of these decisions, CEOs of corporations, are large and many. Indian CEOs run companies which have about $1 trillion in revenue, about $4 trillion in market cap, and 3.4 million employees. I think our focus needs to be on targeting influencers who are responsible for the decisions of large corporates to base and set up production facilities. I found this is true that in the last year, we have been able to encourage companies from Korea, Taiwan, the supply chain of Apple, which is 200 different companies, the Winstrons, the Foxcons, the etc. The role of the diaspora and people to actually encourage and help people find a foothold in India is very real. The truth is people tend to find India because of past history. People tend to think India is opaque and the policy framework is not clear. So you need Sherpas. You need Sherpas and guide minders. I was struck by what the Honorable Prime Minister said. The Indian diaspora has the Bharatita ne jeeta rahe or jagata rahe, or this jigyasa paida karne ka idea, the idea of creating interest in India. I think the diaspora is the best place to be able to influence these influences the capital, the CEOs, to be able to move these production facilities and sites here. The third comment I had is around financial capital. Sanjay asked about that. I think it's quite clear that one of the big things we will need is a lot more capital in India than we really have in India at this point in time. The banking system in India is relatively undercapitalized. And therefore, you need a lot more both direct but as well as portfolio investment into the country. Now, it's no surprise that the biggest sources of capital that have been coming into the country, some of the largest, tend to be where the diaspora either owns the capital or influences the capital. So you think about the hedge funds, you think about the private equity money coming in, you think about the long-only funds, and you track back to the key decision makers, whether it is Blackstone, whether it is Temasek, whether it is Everstone. A large part of the decision making is driven by people who have an understanding of India and an affinity to India because of the Indian roots. And therefore, my view is that trying to again target not the true owner of the capital, but the influence of capital is quite helpful. To make it more personal, DBS is, we're one of the only two banks who decided to subsidize in India 4 years ago. And it's instructive that the only reason I believe we were is because I run DBS. I'm an Indian CEO and therefore Indian-based CEO. I'm just comfortable. Most other foreign banks were willing to do that. Now, this allowed us in recent times to participate in trying to put something together for Lakshmi Vilas Bank that precipitated our bringing in 2,500 crores into the country and be able to create large financing streams into the country. So I think finding people like myself who have a natural affinity to bring capital and financial capital in India is helpful. I think a fourth area where the diaspora is helpful is actually helping India go overseas. I think part of Aatmanirbhar Bharat is taking direct investment out and finding export markets. I can tell you that the opportunity for Indian brands in East Asia is very, very real. A lot of people know that a three-wheeler in Indonesia is still called a Bajaj. And the reason it's called a Bajaj is because all the original three-wheelers, the auto rickshaws are from Bajaj. So it's become a generic name. Godrej products all over Malaysia and Thailand are well accepted. Mahindra tractors in China are well accepted. Now, how do we actually continue to build the brand of our companies, the Indian companies, and make them prevalent and push that agenda in East Asia? I think that can be done. It's a role which the diaspora can play. And finally, I won't repeat it because Amitabh said it well. I think in the startup ecosystem, there is a tremendous opportunity for the diaspora who's very active in the startup ecosystem in East Asia to work with the startup ecosystem in India and make those connections come together and happen. I'll be happy to reflect on some more of these in the interactive part of the session, Sanjay. So I will stop my comments here. Thank you.
Range of ideas that you spoke about, the mega trends that you talked about are really very fascinating. The first one about how the supply chains are shifting and how there is now a desire for a supply chain that is looking for other than China, and how India could be uniquely positioned in that particular aspect. How the realization of COVID has brought about the importance of the digital era and the digital products, and how India could again capitalize on that. The third one that you mentioned was particularly fascinating about the role of agriculture, because I think this is one that is not often talked about, and it is very important that you mentioned it, because we are currently going through a phase where India has introduced a number of very major reforms in the agricultural sector, which could totally revolutionize our ability to produce and be in the market and enhance the farmers' incomes. Thank you for all those comments, but I think one of the key elements that I will take on as we move on further is how you emphasize the role of the diaspora throughout, particularly their presence in various sectors, and particularly in the corporate world, where they could be the leverage, and you gave your own example of how this can come about. Thank you for all those ideas. We shall get back to you during the interactive session, but we shall now move on to Australia, and I'm very happy to welcome Ms. Shiba Nandkyoliar. She is the CEO of Multi Connections Group, which is the leading multicultural and diaspora marketing and advertising agency. Shiba has also been the first woman to chair the national chair of the Australia-India Business Council. I knew you would like to speak from the perspective of how it happens in Australia and how the diaspora over there. How can this particular contribution be enhanced in the field of, say, infrastructure or in communications? And what are the kind of opportunities that you see in India? Shiba, the floor is yours.
You need to unmute yourself.
Shiba,
thank you, Sanjay. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
We can hear you now.
Thank you, Sanjay. First of all, may I congratulate the organizers of the PBD conference. Being a virtual conference and a convention, it's really come together very well. I don't feel that I'm virtual. I feel I'm sitting in the same room as all the other panelists. So thank you. Good afternoon, namaskar, and a happy new year to you, Sanjay, to all my panelists, some of them whom I've known. They have visited Australia and we've spent some time together. And of course, to the Indian missions and the diaspora.
Sorry to come in just a moment. I think the map you have behind you is probably inaccurate. Maybe you might wish to take that off.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry, that map is inaccurate, and
maybe
you might just wish to take it off, and we shall continue without the background in that case.
Yeah. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. It's having a little bit of a problem here, but possibly what I can do is change the virtual background. Is that better?
That's a lovely backdrop.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're looking lovely.
Thank you so much. And so let me get started again. So very good afternoon, namaskar, very happy new year to everyone, and especially to the diaspora too who are watching this session. So today, as you requested me, Sanjay, what I would like to do would be to really talk about my experience on this bilateral relationship, especially contextual Australia. To give it context, I had the unique privilege of being able to work from three perspectives. Of course, as the immediate past chair of the Australia-India Business Council, I had the privilege of working closely on the India economic strategy and its opportunities, obviously. The IAS strategy was great because it was really about plugging the Australian business into India's growth story. And I'll be talking a little bit more about this. How very relevant that India too has actually launched the Australia economic strategy is perfect and a great timing. The second perspective that I'll be talking through from is being on the DFAT board, Australian India Council, for almost 5 years, ending in December 2019. I have actually seen the strong commitment of Australian government to this bilateral relationship. And finally, the third perspective that I'll be talking through from is my own perspective as a business person who's set up a business, who's employed people, who's seen the opportunities that Australia has, who've worked with corporates and see how do we really maximize these opportunities as a diaspora for India, for really attaining PM Modi's vision of Aatmanirbhar India. So I'd like to divide my focus into these three areas, which also, when you speak about communication, Sanjay, we spoke about, I thought I might touch on Brand India. And I think, let me start with that, because that has some amazing global implications. Now, what I found when I first came to Australia, but over the years, gradually it has changed, but not much, is the fact that a lot of businesses who've gone to India, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, may have had some kind of an experience with old India and have clung on to that experience. It is really important for us from the diaspora perspective to be able to really make them understand what New India is about. New India is progressive. It's got youth power, it's got entrepreneurship, and this Brand India is really not fully understood. Many businesses have clung to that old notion, and we really have to work hard to make sure that this New India, which is progressive, entrepreneurial, dynamic, has youthful energy, but more importantly, representing quality and innovation in an economy which is striding forward very rapidly now. And it is going to become one of the top 3 economies in a couple of years, decades to come. The world ranking of doing business was a great way of being able to educate and really position the brand in terms of how well it is coming up. And there's no question that the way the rankings have gone up, the special concessions that have been announced, and I have to say the missions overseas have been doing a great job in actually being able to communicate real time as soon as these initiatives and programs are getting launched. So this actually helps the diaspora too, because for us, it's real-time information and real-time being able to transmit it to our investors and businesses whom we want to attract to India. The other thing is that a way where the diaspora can actually make a difference is if they really fully come together and support the initiatives that the government is announcing. Very often we do find sometimes, and I have to, and this is my message for the diaspora who are listening to me across the world, how good would it be if we really supported whatever the government is announcing and go wholehearted and try and promote this. This then creates for less misconceptions and confusion amongst investors in foreign countries. So we really need to come together, united, and support, as well as promote these initiatives. Now, education, I believe, is going to be a very critical and a very important factor in really making, bringing the businesses and making sure that they understand what India is about and wanting to actually go to India, not being forced to go to India. That's my point. My second focus I thought I would come to is investments, and you spoke about infrastructure and investments and how can we attract. I believe the golden era is very much there for attracting Australian investors now. I don't think it's news to anyone in terms of what the relationship is at the moment with Australia and some neighboring Asian countries. And I think the dominance with certain countries such as China has gone on for too long. And I would say that India's potential has never been really understood until the India Economic Strategy 2035 was released by the government of Australia. A corresponding Australia Economic Strategy was a great way to lay the foundation, of course. But I do believe that there is now a definite upbeat mood, which I have not seen for a long time. I'm not seeing India as an alternative to any other country. I'm seeing India as a country on its own, which has immense business opportunities and possibilities for people to go, and it is a winning strategy for them, not an alternative. So Australian investors have traditionally gone to China, there's no question. But interestingly, in my business, we do have another international wing where I'm really surprised at the number of businesses now who have actually started making inquiries about India. And I know even the Business Council is receiving a lot of inquiries. And this is where we believe that we are able to start educating and start attracting them to start looking at India more seriously. I think Piyush made a really good comment there where he said they need Sherpas. Absolutely. Because on their own, they would be lost. So, you know, when you know, and a diaspora member can be an absolutely amazing strength for such businesses because they know India, they know their country of adoption, and they can get the best winning formula happening for these businesses. Now, you know, how do we attract the big corporates? That's really important. When we're talking of infrastructure, when we're talking of investments, then we really need to perhaps look at, you know, attracting the big corporates and the big groups that can spend money. And in this part, I'm going to actually break up my perspectives and views into two lots. One, how do we attract the corporates to go in and invest in India? And two, how do we make in India or manufacturing in India more comfortable, more real? And this may be for a lot of SMBs also, for small and medium businesses who have now been actually running their factories, investing in China. And this could be very much our opportunity to see here's an amazing, stable, you know, democratic land with great opportunities where you can actually set up your factories and set up your businesses. Good for India, win-win, because win for them because they could be manufacturing from there and exporting to the world. Win for India because of our youth and demographics, they would be getting a lot more jobs, and you know, it's a great win formula. So I believe that would be one for Make in India or for manufacturing in India. But for investments, we have actually, from the Business Council perspective, been already working with Business Council of Australia. That's the lead body where most of the corporates are members, business members. They are in dialogue for a partnership and MOU so that we can then work more closely together to start attracting the Australian corporates to go to India and start investing more. So I think this is going to be a key one. The second one, which I've also worked quite closely with along with my AIBC counterparts, is the Export Council of Australia. And the Export Council of Australia is great because one time I remember chatting to the chair and I said, so how many exporters do you have for China? And when she gave me the number, which ran into hundreds of thousands, I was like, oh my gosh. And how many do you have for India? I think we need to really change this balance and bring about a balance. And I know that from their perspective, the chair as well as the officials, they are very keen to see how they can collaborate more and more with India. This is something, again, even from the Business Council perspective, as a business leader, we are trying to build those relationships to bring them across. So that's on that front. The other one I wanted to chat about was really in terms of what's happening in Australia, which is, I think, going to be really great for the relationship, is the buoyant, positive mood that's existing. I know that in 2012, I remember 2013, I had invited then opposition leader, Honorable Tony Abbott, for a speech, for an annual address for the Business Council. And he asked me, what should I speak? And I said, I want to hear your commitment to India. And the first thing he started his speech was, if I was to become the Prime Minister of Australia, I would love to make India my priority and drive an FTA. It's quite interesting that he actually did start the FTA discussions. There were CECA discussions. Of course, they were a bit bit of ups and downs. But even more interesting now is that we have our new trade, trade, tourism, and investment minister, the Honorable Dan Tehan, who's just been sworn in barely a week ago, or no, sorry, not a week ago, but a few weeks ago, and he has already indicated Australia's interest in doing more with India. He has already spoken quite openly about progressing the CICA discussions, even as much as progressing the FTA discussions. Obviously, the FTA needs, the free trade agreement needs to be a win-win situation for both. But the very fact that the trade minister is now actually quite openly talking about how we can really fast track this relationship, I believe is a really good outcome. I believe very positive. On just as a sum up, I think that the 2035 economic strategy, where they did say that the diaspora is a critical enabler for the growth and progress of this relationship. And I strongly believe in that, as also how important India is, because India's 5 largest cities will have economies comparable to middle-sized income countries of today. So it's huge. The opportunities are huge. And with the Australia Economic Strategy getting released more recently, I think that's a missing piece in the puzzle, where a lot of Australian investors and businesses were actually waiting for this strategy. I know we used to get a lot of when is it going to get released? So I can see this coming together now. Just in terms of really sum up, I do believe from my perspective, the time is now. It's a really golden era for the Australia-India relationship. And I'm hoping that definitely we should be able to fast track the pillars that Mr. Modi has spoken about in his Aatmanirbhar Bharat. I can see 2 key pillars definitely in terms of manufacturing, as well as in terms of investments into infrastructure that could happen. Something which is also very interesting could be that we are looking at lot of research and research innovations that can happen. And these innovations can be in things like, we know that Indians have traditionally been very strong in information technology. Today, the world is going digital. And, I mean, sometimes I think to myself in a more personal note that we have the best cuisine in the world, we have the best clothes in the world, we have the best films in the world, we have the best technology in the world. Why not the best business climate in the world? I mean, all the recipe is there. It's really about bringing it together. And I feel today very, very strongly that with the COVID, it's with the COVID situation and digitization, it's actually an advantage for India. Because this digital technology, this is where our information technology can offer huge collaborative opportunities, whether be it in the cybersecurity, blockchain, whether it is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, pharmaceuticals, telemedicine. I mean, the list is endless. So I think I should stop there for the moment, and also thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to speak today. Thank you.
Ms. Nanka Kyolar, thank you so much for a very fascinating presentation on a range of issues. But there are a couple that I wish to kind of reiterate, which were truly interesting, and I think we should carry that forward. The first is that when you talked about the diaspora and who they represent, you mentioned how it is important for them to represent New India. And I think a lot of what you said right towards the end also talked about how these opportunities are also there in the new economy that is now shaping up. The second thing that I found very interesting, and I think this is something that we probably need to do on a bilateral level with other countries as well, is your reference to the India Strategy 2035, which was produced by the Australian side, and how that can, in a sense, galvanize a certain momentum, which can bring about the looking at new opportunities. And you said it very interestingly, not as an alternative, but as a winning strategy, as one in which this is seen as an option that you would actually go for, not because something else is not so interesting. And how the role of the diaspora has also been highlighted in this particular strategy. There were many other ideas that he talked about, particularly on attracting the corporate sector, which Piyush Gupta had also mentioned about, and I think we take common strands in that. I think how to attract corporate sector, and we have a panelist at the end of the session who will probably tell us much more in detail about it, but that's going to be one of the key pillars of how we move ahead. I am now delighted to move across to the United Arab Emirates, and we have with us Mr. M.A. Yusuf Ali, chairman of the Lulu Group, a very distinguished Pravasi. He's won the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award in the past, and he comes from, he's created a business empire that is not only in the Gulf, but has expanded to other continents as well, and employs thousands and thousands of people. And his supply chains have very deep links into India too, including most recently in the Union Territories of Jammu and Kashmir as well, I understand. But since we have more than 3 million people in the United Arab Emirates, we have 9 million Indians who live in the Gulf. May I request Mr. Yusuf Ali to share his thoughts on the role of the diaspora from the perspective of the Gulf region and how they can support Aatmanirbhar Bharat. Mr. Yusuf Ali, the floor is yours.
Namaskar, Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Sri Jaishankar ji, Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industries, Piyush Goyal ji, distinguished moderator, Excellency Sanjay Bhattacharya ji, Sri Amitabh Kant, who was architect for a lot of new innovative projects in the state of Kerala, my home state, including a lot of PPP projects. Sri Amitabh Kant ji, Sri Deepak Bangla, and other distinguished fellow panelists, invitees, participants, and dear friends. Amitabh Kant ji, Mananjara playground, we still remember.
Community and social work with the support of our Consulate General of India, Dubai, and all the consulate team and the staff always supporting, and we are always thanks to the consulate and local authority. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you from from our Indian Council. Actually, I am working last 15 years in social work. Last 7 years, in our council, I cannot say it because if we will coming any 24 hours also, any death case or hospital case or any labor case or jail case, our sir, Negi sir and Sanjay sir, also everybody, even CG also, they are helping a lot. Even anybody in the hospital case, we know, if anybody want to take to India to back, there is more than 30,000 or 40,000 is expense. So when we are giving to correct people from the hospital report and even family report also, in our council they are doing from FOC, free of charge. Even any case of whatever, even death case or hospital case, any kind of case also in council, 24 hours they are helping. So, and social worker, I am really, really happy.
Thank you so much. I would like to take this video also from this. दादा आपसे 1 मिनट का एक मैसेज लोगों के लिए लोगों क्या जो भी आपको दिल में अच्छा लगे because you are the one of the stalwarts. So when I start, so good morning, lady. When you start, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are with one of the stalwarts, one of the grand old men of Dubai, Vasu Dada, commonly known as Dada Vashu Shroff here. And Vasuda is a very, very well-known face in the community here, and Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Awardee in 2015. And I would like to Pravasi Samman Awardee, Mr. Vashu Shroff, to say a few words for the community on this occasion.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You are a very active man, and I'm 80 years young.
Yes.
I'm old but plus young.
Yes.
So, but you have made me young because when I see your energy, I get full energy. And I'm very happy that our mission people, and PBD, when I got award about 4 years back, I'm one of the lucky men. And that's because of the constitutional people, they recommended my name, looking at my energy and efforts. And this mission, all the time doing best to help the people. You know, Gulf, Dubai plays major role to help the people here, and we need their help all the time. And one of them, there's our Neeraj Kumar, our new consul, who's young. I bless them all. I bless everybody. Today is the best day, but due to this COVID, our program has been postponed. It was been a wonderful program, but inshallah by next 2 years baad, we might have fantastic program. We will see that we all are there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you for all the kind words. Thank you. Thank you. Suresh. Thank you.
आगे 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 आगे
perspective on the ways which the Indian diaspora can contribute towards Honorable Prime Minister's Aatmanirbhar Bharat. I once again thank Government of India and Ministry of External Affairs for creating such wonderful platform. Thank you. Perspective on the ways which the Indian diaspora can contribute
Thank you,
towards
Mr. Yusuf
Honorable
Ali, as
Prime
always.
Aatmanirbhar Bharat.
Words of
I once
inspiration
again
for the Indian
thank
diaspora,
Government of India
particularly
and
for the
Ministry
Gulf.
of External Affairs
I think you
for
mentioned several
creating
points, but I
such
will
wonderful
touch upon a
platform.
couple of
Thank
them,
you.
which we should take forward. The area where we have the largest concentration of Indian diaspora, that is the Gulf, is one in which the people of the Gulf love the Indian and they are the preferred migrant in that region. And you mentioned the very special relationship that Prime Minister has with the entire leadership in the Gulf region, which has contributed towards this feeling of well-being. The second one, which I think we should carry forward, and I think this is really beautifully and eloquently said when you gave the example of how the Indian in the Gulf has his tan, man and dhan all in India. And that is actually a very amazing instance of how the two can then work together towards the common objectives. Thank you so much, Mr. Yusuf Ali, for your views. We now move on to Mr. Jayant Krishna from the United Kingdom, an entrepreneur and a member of the UK-India Business Council. He has also been involved in the National Skill Development Council and so has wide experience in that area as well. But we would today wish to ask him as to how we can leverage the UK economy and perhaps the European to provide technology and innovation support to accelerate Aatmanirbhar Bharat. You may also wish to touch upon the role of skills in this particular area and what and how we can leverage that for our migration flows to new destinations. Mr. Jayant Krishna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay Bhattacharya. I'm delighted to be here at the Pravasi Bharati Divas convention on behalf of the UK-India Business Council. Mr. Amitabh Kant, Dr. Panagriya, Piyush, Sheba, Deepak, and Yusuf Sahab. Thank you, Sanjay Bhattacharya. If you're one of the last few speakers, the good and bad of that sequence is that a lot of what you wanted to say has already been said, but nevertheless, to my mind, the most important aspect of the Pravasi Bharati Divas, the 16th, which we are celebrating today, it commemorates the return of Mahatma Gandhi, after several years from South Africa to India, and he went there as a Pravasi Bharati. The Satyagraha, the non.
थोड़ा लेफ्ट साइड थोड़े से यस करेक्ट राइट
Very good morning. Namaskar, very good morning. On the occasion of the 16th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, I would like to extend my warm greetings to all members of the Indian community living in Dubai and the Northern Emirates. We heard Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, give a clarion call to all Indian diaspora to participate in the Aatmanirbhar Bharat campaign to make India a self-reliant economy, a robust member of the global economy and playing a critical part in global supply chains. He also applauded the role played by the Indian healthcare professionals all over the world, including in the Gulf region. This is an opportunity for us to extend our gratitude to all members of the community for the enormous support which we as a consulate have received over the last 1 year and in the years before. Looking forward, we look forward to working with you in making sure that we are able to contribute meaningfully in the development and progress of India. Thank you. थोड़ा सा एक बार दोबारा करें, कुछ थोड़ा पंच नहीं आया है ना?
नहीं आ गया.
But 1.6